So, South Sudan has released 85 child detainees in a bid to lower prison numbers and reduce COVID-19 infection rates. Now, the initiative will see the children handed over to their parents or legal guardians. South Sudan currently does not have juvenile detention facilities, and the children are held with adult offenders. The UN mission in South Sudan with UNICEF and government secured their release in an effort to improve access to justice for children in Africa's youngest country. For more on this now, we're joined by Jean Lieby, who's UNICEF Chief of Child Protection. Thanks very much for your time, Jean. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Perhaps let's begin with understanding the circumstances that may have seen a lot of these children in the type of condition that they're in. Give us a sense why many of them would have been detained to begin with.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me this morning. Many children are in detention because they have committed minor offenses. You know that we are in one of the poorest countries of the continent, and daily life is extremely difficult, and so some children are sometimes entering in difficult economic situation, and they struggle for life as well as their families, and therefore they might come in contact with the law and break some rules.
You make a point of them struggling in their own lives, which immediately raises questions around how they'll be protected when they're forced to return to that life in some way or another. Give us an idea of how you're going to be ensuring their safety as they go back to the very environments that landed them up in those detention facilities.
You know, in the detention facility, it's quite difficult to keep a distance, and therefore it is better they are out of the detention facilities that are mostly overcrowded. There are also issues of hygiene in the detention facilities where you cannot wash your hands as much as it would be required. Within their families or with their guardians, we have social workers that will follow up each and every case to support them and to support the families, to accommodate them as best as possible.
Give us an idea of the scale of this operation, and perhaps let's start by understanding how many children typically would be in those detention facilities, which I understand they share with the adults. I mean, how many people would be in that sort of environment at any given point, typically speaking?
It is not really the case that they share with adults. We have some detention facilities that are specialized for minors. So, but in any case, if you are in a big room or in different big rooms where you are many together, there is much more supposing possibilities for you to get infected, as you cannot have social distance. But it is a very important step forward by the judicial of the country that they gave the possibility to children that have committed minor offenses to return to their families or guardians. It's an essential step forward to protect among the most vulnerable in the country, that are the detainees. You know that you can see how democracy is working on how a country treats its detainees. And this is an important step forward for this country, that these children with minor offenses have been released and handed over to their families or guardians. All of them have been able to go to their families or guardians. We have only a few remaining that have committed major offenses, but this is at the discretion of the judiciary to see if they can also get out of detention.
I see. Okay, so it's not all the children necessarily being released. That being said, though, I do imagine many of them would have been taking part in some kind of rehabilitation program. in many countries, that's part of the reason why people are incarcerated or detained to begin with. How do you think their release is going to affect their ability to be rehabilitated if, in fact, that's still what they need, despite the fact that there's a pandemic?
You know, therefore, we are working in close collaboration, and UNICEF is also funding the national NGO that is providing the social worker. So each and every case, like I said, will be followed up at home, and will get as much as possible the essential services that are required. But you know, we are still in a very young country that has been born in 2011, and still not all the services are available. Just as a reminder, we have 2 million children that are still out of school because the availability of education is not yet here for everyone. So, you know, step by step, the country is moving forward and being more and more a country fit for children. But it will need some more years.
And that certainly opens us up to the societal issues that they may have to deal with once they go back to that environment. And perhaps we can speak to that more generally now. You know, give us an idea of the ways through which children still need to be looked after or look out for once they are in normal society, so to speak, in South Sudan.
You know, all children need a particular attention, and they need, for sure, their parents to understand their situation. And that's why parenting education is extremely important. We have always to consider in each and every offense that children are committed, that they are mostly a victim because they have not been in a favored environment, a victim because they have not been in the hands of parents that were well educated. They are a victim because they are children and they have not grown up in an economic situations that helps them to develop all their competencies. But as well, some psychosocial support is necessary as well, some accompaniment, some case management to orient them and to lead them to the right services if they are existing. So all this needs to be done by the social workers that are an essential and a key tool within the rehabilitation and the reintegration of children. And also for families to get support. You know, if you are in a very bad economic situation, you are not prone to have the ability to give the best education possible to your children.
That's right. I also understand that UNICEF in that country is working on some kind of pilot project. It's kind of aimed at trying to ensure that the imprisonment of children is a last resort. Give us an idea of what this project looks like. You know, how is it likely to materialize, and how far you think you are in ensuring that it is rolled out in that country?
Thank you for this question. And in this, we are not working alone. We are working together with the judicial, with the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Welfare, as well with our colleague from the UN mission in South Sudan. You know, there is still a mission here. And we have as basis the Children Act that has been passed in the country. It has many, many good provisions in line with international standards. And you know that the best place for a child is not in custody or in detention. The best place is in the family or in a rehabilitation system. So we are moving forward. We had some good steps forward, but now, you know, with some restrictions of movement, it is difficult to move it forward. But what is essential is that we are thinking about diversion programs so that children are not even going and spend one day in detention. It needs to be done even before, the diversion needs to be done even before the child gets in contact with the judiciary through social work, case management, and mediation work. This is extremely important.
Absolutely. And how enabling do you think legislation in its current form is for a project like that? I understand, of course, there's the South Sudan Child Act that's in place. I mean, do you think the law in its current form is an enabler in trying to ensure that children are detained as a last resort more than anything else?
Yes, sure. The law is always an enabler. If we have a good law as basis of work, it is I would say the foundation that helps the judiciary and the police to work. Without a legal framework, it's always difficult to do mediation and to do diversion. If the diversion is really written black on white in the law, then we can move forward. Without that, we are always, and every social worker, and I was for a long time a social worker, we are working in grey zones. If this grey zone is not anymore grey, but is legal, then you can move really and positively forward.